The image is striking, yet rarely makes the evening news. In the hangars of central Myanmar and the motor pools of northern Nigeria, dozens of brand new high-tech machines are sitting perfectly still. These are not combat losses. They weren't taken out by missiles or IEDs. In fact, many have barely seen a day of service. Instead, they are victims of something far more mundane: the readiness cliff. In 2024 and 2025, reports began to surface of nearly 70% of Myanmar's JF-17 fighter fleet being grounded due to structural cracks and radar failures. Simultaneously, halfway across the world, Nigerian crews reported their prized VT-4 main battle tanks, marketed as the pinnacle of Chinese armored exports, failing to fire their cannons during high-level demonstrations. For a decade, the global arms market has been disrupted by a simple pitch: 80% of the Western capability at 40% of the price. It was a value proposition that worked, until the first spare part was needed. For planners in Washington and logistics officers within NATO, a new strategic reality is coming into focus. China has mastered the transaction, but it is failing the life cycle. We are witnessing the end of the sticker price era defense. Because as it turns out, in a modern conflict, a weapon system is not a product you buy. It is a 30-year industrial marriage. And for many of China's global clients, the divorce is becoming incredibly expensive.
The central contradiction of the Chinese defense model is best understood through the lens of a consumer electronics strategy applied to industrial warfare. For years, the narrative was that Beijing had become the Huawei of defense, capable of flooding the global south with hardware that looked like a Lockheed or a General Dynamics product, but without the geopolitical lectures or the 10-digit price tag. It was the ultimate low-friction entry into the high-stakes world of modern weaponry. But here is the strategic trap. In the civilian world, if your smartphone develops a structural crack or a software glitch, you simply replace it. The life cycle is 3 years. In the world of strategic defense, the life cycle is 30. When a state like Pakistan, Myanmar, or Nigeria integrates a Chinese fighter jet or main battle tank into its order of battle, it isn't just buying a machine, it is adopting an entire ecosystem of standards, metallurgy, and proprietary software. The question for planners in Washington and Indo-Pacific capitals is no longer, how capable is this weapon today? The real question is, what happens to that capability when the first engine needs an overhaul? As we see in Myanmar, where the junta is reportedly turning to Pakistani engineers and even sanctioned third-party contractors just to keep their airframes from falling apart, the low cost of Chinese hardware is proving to be a debt that is called in exactly when the shooting starts. This isn't just a maintenance problem, it's a structural flaw in the logic of Chinese power projection.
To understand why these systems are failing, we have to look at the industrial philosophy in Beijing. Unlike the Western model, which increasingly favors open architecture, allowing a French sensor to talk to an American missile, the Chinese defense industry operates as a proprietary closed loop. For a logistics officer in the Royal Thai Army, this creates a binary choice. If a circuit board in your VT-4 tank fails, you cannot go to the open market. You cannot shop around for a compatible part from a secondary supplier in Europe. You are tethered to a single factory in mainland China. In late 2025, during the border friction between Thailand and Cambodia, this logic hit a wall. When a VT-4 gun barrel catastrophically ruptured, sending shrapnel into the crew compartment, the investigation didn't just point to a manufacturing defect, it pointed to a sustainability deficit. Thai crews reported that the barrels were not designed for the sustained high-pressure firing cycles required in actual combat. They were designed for the display cycle, high performance in short, controlled bursts. For planners in Washington, this is a critical data point. It suggests that China's industrial base is optimized for surge production, not sustained attrition. They can build 10,000 tanks, but can they keep them running for 6 months under fire? This leads us to a second, more uncomfortable realization. Perhaps the lack of spare parts isn't a bug in the Chinese system. Perhaps it's a feature of their military doctrine. In a Taiwan Strait scenario, the PLA's planning likely assumes a conflict of extreme intensity but limited duration. In that model, you don't repair a damaged fighter jet. You replace it with a new one from a factory it's only 500 miles away. This is a disposability logic. But when you export that logic to Nigeria or Pakistan, it becomes a disaster. These nations don't have the budget to treat a $50 million fighter jet as a disposable asset. For them, the weapon is the investment. When the Russian-made engines on the JF-17 start smoking after 400 hours, half the lifespan of a Western equivalent, and the Chinese parent company struggles to navigate the sanctions-heavy supply chain for those engines, the client is left holding a very expensive paperweight. Finally, we have to look at the incentives. For the Chinese state-run conglomerates like Knorr & Co. or AVIC, the goal of an export sale is often more political than financial. It's about building a strategic showroom. By placing VT-4s in Thailand or JF-17s in Iraq, Beijing is marking territory in the global strategic system. But once the contract is signed and the photo op is over, the incentive to maintain that hardware drops significantly. Providing decades of boring, low-margin maintenance and spare parts is not nearly as profitable or as strategically visible as selling the next big shiny object. For allies calculating sustainability in the Indo-Pacific, the readiness cliff we see in 2025 is a warning. China is currently a superpower of acquisition, but it has yet to prove it can be a superpower of sustenance.
There is a temptation to view these mechanical failures, the shattered gun barrels in Thailand, or the grounded jets in Myanmar, as mere teething problems of a rising industrial power, but that is a superficial reading. The grounded fleets of 2025 reveal a deeper, more permanent strategic reality. China's defense industry is currently a sprinter being asked to run a marathon. My stance is this: Beijing has effectively disrupted the global arms market at the point of sale, but it has fundamentally failed to build the infrastructure of influence. In the Western model, the sale of an F-16 is the beginning of a 40-year tether to Washington. It involves joint training, shared logistics hubs, and a constant flow of data and parts that effectively locks the buyer into a specific strategic orbit. China, by contrast, is treating arms exports like high-speed rail or 5G infrastructure. Install it quickly, move on to the next project, and leave the maintenance to the local authorities. But while a train can sit on a track waiting for a technician, a tank that won't fire during a border skirmish is a sovereign catastrophe. For planners in the Indo-Pacific, this logistical fragility is a gift disguised as a threat. It suggests that while China can project power quickly through sales, that power has an incredibly short half-life. Without a global network of deep support bases and a cultural shift toward long-term sustenance over short-term production, China's strategic partners are actually becoming logistical liabilities. We are moving into a decade where the most valuable asset isn't the weapon itself, it's the guarantee of its readiness. And right now, Made in China is a guarantee that expires the moment the crate is opened. The ultimate climax of this maintenance crisis isn't found in a repair manual. It's found in the shifting geography of global power. Consider the second-order divorce happening right now. When Bangladesh or Myanmar realizes their Chinese-made hardware is failing, they don't just stop buying from Beijing. They are forced to invite third-party actors, often Western-aligned or neutral powers, like Israel, Turkey, or even India, into their most sensitive military facilities to fix the Chinese mess. This creates the ultimate strategic irony. China's arms exports are inadvertently creating backdoors for its rivals. The non-obvious insight here is that we are witnessing the birth of a two-tier strategic world. Tier 1 consists of nations that can afford sustainment depth, the expensive, boring, but reliable machines that stay ready for decades. Tier 2 is becoming a disposable tier, states that possess impressive-looking arsenals that will effectively vanish 180 days into a real conflict due to a lack of a specific $500 semiconductor or a specialized gasket. For a NATO logistics officer, the lesson of the 2025 barrel bursts is clear. Attrition is not just about who has more missiles, it's about whose industrial base can heal itself in the field. China's current model is built on industrial vanity. It produces high-spec hardware for the parade ground, but it lacks the logistical humility required to keep a global army standing when the sun goes down. In the 21st century, the greatest weapon isn't the one that hits the hardest, it's the one that's still working on day 100 of the war.
This maintenance reality forces us to ask a difficult question about the future of deterrence. If a nation's defense is built on disposable hardware, does that make them more or less likely to trigger a conflict? Does the knowledge that your fleet will be grounded in 6 months create a use-it-or-lose-it incentive that makes the world more dangerous, not less? For decision-makers from the South China Sea to the Baltics, the sticker price of a weapon is no longer the metric that matters. The new metric is sustainability-adjusted power. We invite you to look past the flashy specs of the next Zhuhai Air Show. Instead, look at the warehouses, look at the spare parts agreements, because in the next era of strategic competition, the winner won't be the one with the most tanks. It will be the one who can still find a spare bolt when the world is on fire. What do you think? Is the maintenance gap a temporary hurdle for Beijing or a permanent ceiling on their global ambitions? Let's discuss the logic below.